quite a clip.
Well, I wanted to stay out of the presidential election. It's
happened?
gross because I feel like I had to. I feel like this is so nuts. This is so nuts. When that Tim Walz guy, it's so nuts that guy was going to be the vice president. You're telling me, you're telling me this whole thing's fake. Then you're telling me you don't care if someone's a liar. You don't care if they lied about their military rank, where they served. You don't care if they lie about being an assistant. You don't care if they lie about Tiananmen Square. There's too many things. This is so crazy. You would get fired if you were an assistant manager at an oil changing company.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so much here first.
Donald Trump lies like breathing. He doesn't know what the truth is.
The crowd was massive. That was all the way back down to the Washington Monument.
It looked like 1.5 million people to get this network. And it showed an empty field. And it said we drew 250,000 people. Now, that's not bad, but it's a lie.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
We built the greatest economy in the history of the world. Best unemployment numbers, best everything.
The wall is being built, and we're doing 10 miles a week. It'll be completed very soon.
And Mexico is paying for the wall, by the way, in case you had any questions.
Credit to Now This Impact for that. So let's begin. And I mean, don't say that you care about honesty when there is a person leading an entire administration that blatantly lies day after day, month after month, year after year. You cannot cling to, I want honest people, and then admittedly cast your ballot for Donald John Trump. Those things, that is not a relationship, that is not a courtship. Those are differences, staunch differences. When he says, and the Washington Post even accumulated all the untruths. 30,573. He averaged 21 erroneous claims a day. And by the way, it took him 27 months to reach 10,000, 14 months to reach 20, 30,000 less than 5 months later. The man is a pathological liar. We're going to get into the psychology of it in a moment. But let me just say this to be very clear, okay? You can't say that you care about truths. You cannot when you are voting for that. And he is getting dragged online. And he should be getting dragged online. This is the #1 podcast in the world. And what we have seen recently is lining up with a theory I had, which is when Vladimir Klitschko, former boxing champion, brother to Vitaly, another boxing champion in the heavyweight division, called out Joe Rogan by peddling in Russian propaganda and saying, why don't you have me on? So you can get some of the pure, unabashed honesty on the ground in Ukraine. Rogan didn't reply. A fan page, to be very clear, called Joe Rogan HQ replied, but it lines up with my thinking. The man is very close after he admittedly was in a room on election night with Trump and Elon Musk and Dana White. Okay? Dana White, did he broker that sort of sit-in? I have no idea, but he was there. And he spoke to how Elon Musk knew that the election was over hours before. That's a huge red flag. We know that he makes his money through government contracts. And the $44 billion purchase of Twitter, people keep talking about it. I'm telling you, it does not mean anything when you have those contracts. And especially when people helped and certain entities helped finance that deal. Nonetheless, this is aligning with my theory that he doesn't really care about misinformation. Because what he may have is, after showing that he aligns with Tucker Carlson, who has a clear, direct line to the Kremlin, even when he's getting called out by them, for basically saying he's a hack reporter, and it was too soft and chummy of an interview, which is saying something. What I believe is happening here is through the Wall Street Journal piece, or maybe it was Mother Jones, one of the two, it was a direct line that Musk has to Putin and how he potentially turned off some Starlink satellites that were helping Ukraine and Zelensky. That is a huge story. Huge story. So what I think is happening here is a few things. Number one, it is the morphing of someone who very controversial, okay, has pretty controversial opinions, especially on trans people. But what we have seen is Joe Rogan go from being a Bernie dude to being a Trump guy because it is symbolic of what has happened with the Democratic Party. It is symbolic, guys. I need everyone to understand this. When people say, the party left me or they don't represent me, there were some policies that were very good. There were others that were terrible. Like suddenly they're heavy on the wall. Like, no. I got to be honest with you. I don't give a flying 4-letter word about the wall. I don't care about immigration. I just don't. What I think is the bigger threat, according to the FBI, is domestic white terrorism. That's the bigger threat to us. It's the rise of white supremacists because of the previous administration prior to Biden taking over. And I'm not a Biden guy. And now, what I'm seeing here, in addition to all of that, is over time, feeling left behind and then just throwing up your arms saying F it, but also taking in a certain level of content over and over and over and over again and manipulating your brain through the Myron Gaineses of the world, red pill stuff as well, the Aiden Rosses, also a man's name, Bradley Martin, not my man, you know what I mean. The Bradley Martin content as well. And that is what has happened with Rogan. But it's also because he was left behind as a voter. I love hearing, and I know we're going in different places, and I want to get to the psychology of lying behind politicians in a second. But what really gets me is how people are saying we need a Joe Rogan when the point was made by Haas, and I agree with it. They had it. His name was Joe Rogan. They had it. And then they just let it go. They let it go. But they also tried to outflank the Bernie wing with Liz Cheney. And it alienated a lot of voters. And that is the harsh truth. When you keep telling people that we're going too far left, especially the Morning Joes of the world who are now sucking up to Trump at Mar-a-Lago, which is insane. I find that to be rather odd because what people need is hope. What people need is change. What people need are policies that make their lives better. And when you don't offer that and you're basically trying to take out, I said this yesterday, another piece of the pie of republicanism and just launch it into like centrism, it doesn't work. And the big conflict of interest here and the underlying theme is they are enslaved to the same donors that a lot of Republicans are because they take the money. If you run on hard leftist populist policy, it'll win. But now here we are. But back to Rogan. Don't tell me that you care about this stuff. You don't. You don't care. You don't care. If you are peddling in Russian propaganda, if you are saying that you love Tucker Carlson and you really think there are many in the MAGA movement and Trump's base that are great, and they are giving patently false rhetoric over and over again, stop the cap, man. But here's this. Daniel Dale would put out an article saying Trump falsely claimed of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, they have no money. You know where they gave the money? To illegal immigrants. That obviously was not true. FEMA has the money for immediate responses to Helene and Milton, 2 terrible hurricanes, which they lied about. Though a string of recent disasters has depleted its disaster relief fund. The fund had about $11 billion. FEMA did not give all of its disaster relief money to undocumented people. And then there's also Western Washington University, which called Trump's reign in the White House a legacy of lies. But you care about honesty, right, Joe? You care about that stuff. No, you don't. Just say you don't. Just say you don't. Jeff Beatty, a professor of psychology at Edge Hill University, would write for The Conversation, and I want everyone to take this in. Although other presidents have lied to the public, none have lied like this. Some of Trump's lies are trivial. Many are self-aggrandizing, like nobody builds better blah, blah, blah than me, blah, 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 me. Then there are his more egregious lies, like the one about the 2020 presidential election being stolen, which it was not. Demonstrably and dangerously contrary to the facts, with serious consequences for the nation and public trust. He would continue, and this is vital information for everyone to know. And these lies can cut through. Research regarding the big lie, aka the quote, stolen election Trump and his cohorts rail on, was proven to be very sticky. Around 50% of Republican voters believed it, regardless of any emerging contrary evidence. The researchers also found that belief in this lie boosted Republican supporters' self-esteem, as they weren't losers after all. That is sipping the tea right there, man. Lastly, here's the kicker for Rogan and other Trumpers via Beatty. Certain types of personality are drawn to telling these sorts of lies, including those with little empathy, such as narcissists and psychopaths. They don't care about the consequences for the recipient. It's all about them. Feels pretty fitting. Thoughts? Comments down below.